People often talk about prices as if they were moral statements about what things are worth. Welcome to another video based on the book What People Get Wrong About Economics, a Guide to the Core Concepts by Library of Ideas. Today I tell you about price and why that small number attached to every product carries far more information than most people realize. Imagine standing in a supermarket during a sudden heat wave. Bottled water that cost £1 yesterday now costs £3. Social media explodes. Politicians complain. Customers stare at the shelves in disbelief. That's greed, somebody says. And emotionally, the reaction makes sense. But economics asks a different question. What is the price actually doing? Because price is not only a payment, it is also a signal. A message moving through the market, carrying information about scarcity, demand, cost, risk, and expectations about the future. Higher prices tell buyers to slow down, compare options, or conserve resources. At the same time, they tell producers that supplying more may now be worth the effort. Without that signal, coordination becomes far harder. And yet, prices also feel personal. A rising price can mean inconvenience for one person and genuine hardship for another. Which is why humans keep arguing about prices as if numbers themselves possess moral intentions. They do not. But the consequences attached to them absolutely do. Houston, 2 days after the hurricane. The streets are still covered with broken branches, soaked furniture, and pieces of people's lives dragged out by floodwater. Electricity has returned to some neighborhoods, but not all. In a small convenience store on a corner that somehow escaped the flooding, a handwritten sign hangs above a stack of bottled water. $9.99. A week earlier, the same bottle cost $3.29. Customers stop in front of the shelf and stare. One man mutters that it is robbery. A woman takes a photo and says she will post it online. By the afternoon, local radio stations are already talking about price gouging. Behind the counter, the owner looks exhausted. He explains again and again that his supplier raised prices overnight. Fuel costs jumped, deliveries became uncertain, trucks were rerouted. He paid far more than usual just to get this shipment at all. Most customers do not care about the explanation. They see one thing only: a number 3 times higher than before. And in a moment of crisis, when clean water suddenly feels essential, that number lands heavily. It feels personal, intentional, almost cruel. Outside, people queue carrying half-empty shopping baskets. Inside, the shelf empties more slowly than it would have at last week's price. One number written on cardboard. And suddenly, the shop becomes a stage for anger, fear, suspicion, and moral judgment. From the outside, it looks like a direct clash between greed and need. The reaction is immediate. It feels unfair. In a crisis, prices should fall, not rise. Making a profit while people are desperate seems morally wrong. And the higher the price climbs, the stronger the accusation becomes. In everyday thinking, price quickly turns into a judgment about character. High price means greed. Low price means decency. The shopkeeper stops being seen as a trader and becomes a moral figure. measured by the digits written on a cardboard sign. And emotionally, this reaction makes complete sense. When water is scarce and anxiety spreads through a city, any increase in price feels like exploitation. The number appears personal, as if somebody consciously decided to profit from fear. But this interpretation leaves something important out. It treats price as if it were only a reflection of intention, as if the number appeared in isolation, disconnected from everything happening behind it. What disappears from view is the mechanism underneath. The chain of costs, shortages, transport problems, risks, expectations, and decisions, all compressed into that single figure. The anger is understandable, but the explanation remains incomplete. Because prices are not simply moral statements. They are signals emerging from a much larger system, whether people like the message or not. The question begins to shift. Instead of asking whether the price is fair, we ask something different. What is the price actually saying? And here the word becomes precise. Price. A price is a signal. It carries information about two things at the same time: how strongly people want a good, and how difficult it is to bring that good to the shelf. After a hurricane, both sides change suddenly. Demand for bottled water explodes overnight because people urgently need it. At the same time, supply becomes harder. Roads are blocked, fuel is scarce, deliveries are delayed. Warehouses may be damaged. More people want the product. Fewer units are available. And the number on the sign adjusts to reflect that new reality. The price rises not because the digit itself possesses moral meaning, but because the conditions surrounding the product have changed. Scarcity intensifies, so the signal changes with it. And this is the uncomfortable part. The price does not accuse anyone. It does not defend anyone either. It does not praise virtue or condemn greed. It communicates information, nothing more. Whether human beings like the message is a completely different question, and humans are famously enthusiastic about shooting the messenger when reality becomes unpleasant. A price does more than sit quietly on a label. It coordinates decisions. When the number rises, people adjust their behaviour. Someone who planned to buy 5 packs of water decides to take 2 instead. People hesitate. They conserve. They begin treating the product as something scarce rather than unlimited. At the same time, the higher price sends signals outward through the system. To suppliers in nearby cities, it says there is now an opportunity here. To transport companies, it suggests that rerouting trucks towards this area may finally justify the fuel costs and risks. To wholesalers, it signals that restocking this neighbourhood should move higher on the priority list. The price communicates scarcity. It tells the market, in compressed form, that this product has become harder to obtain relative to how strongly people want it. And this matters during crises, because higher prices can slow consumption enough for available stock to last longer. Instead of disappearing within the first hour, the water may spread across more households over several days. That feels uncomfortable emotionally, but economically the signal performs a function. In this sense, price behaves almost like a language. It speaks without emotion. It does not explain why the hurricane happened. It does not measure suffering. It does not judge intentions or fairness. It simply communicates 2 facts at once. This good is scarce, and many people urgently want it. The rest of the system reacts from there. But a signal is not neutral in its effects. When the price of water triples, people do not respond in the same way. Some buy a little less and continue without major difficulty. Others stand in front of the shelf, calculate silently, and walk away. For them, the higher price is not a small adjustment. It becomes a barrier, and this is where the tension sharpens. The price may coordinate resources efficiently, but it also excludes. Those with fewer means feel the impact first, and usually most painfully. So the uncomfortable question appears. Does the fact that a price communicates scarcity justify the outcome it creates? If higher prices help conserve stock and attract new supply, is that enough? Or should limits exist when basic human needs are involved? In moments of crisis, this conflict becomes impossible to hide. Efficiency suggests that higher prices ration scarce goods and encourage replenishment. Justice suggests that access to essentials should not depend entirely on purchasing power. Both arguments contain something true. The price can organise behaviour. It can spread limited supplies across time and space more effectively than panic buying often does. But price cannot resolve moral dilemmas. A number on a shelf cannot decide what a society owes vulnerable people during emergencies. That requires political and ethical judgment, not merely economic coordination. Which is unfortunate because humans keep demanding moral wisdom from mechanisms designed mainly to process information. And this tension returns every time societies debate regulation, emergency controls, or the role of the state itself. Seen from a wider angle, something important becomes clear. A price is the point where demand and supply meet. It is not invented by one side alone. It is not simply imposed by sellers, and it is not dictated entirely by buyers either. It emerges from their interaction, from what people are willing and able to pay, and what others are willing and able to offer. And this explains something many people find confusing. Prices can rise sharply without any secret conspiracy behind them. If demand suddenly increases while supply becomes more limited, the intersection shifts. The number changes because conditions change. The opposite is true as well. Prices can fall even when producers remember paying higher costs in the past. Markets respond primarily to current conditions, not to emotional attachment to yesterday's expenses. Which is unfortunate for anyone who has ever stared bitterly at an investment that refused to respect their memories. This also explains why shortages often appear when prices are artificially frozen. If the signal is blocked, demand stays high while supply loses the incentive to expand. Shelves empty, queues form, and the missing price stops communicating how scarce the product really is. But price always simplifies reality. It compresses an enormous amount of information into one small figure. It does not show inequality. It does not display income histories. It does not reveal moral beliefs about who deserves what. It is only a signal. And like any signal, it can be misunderstood, ignored, manipulated, or deliberately suppressed. The consequences follow either way, whether societies approve of them or not. A few days later, a new delivery arrives. The shop owner drags fresh crates of bottled water from the back room and stacks them neatly onto the shelves. The cardboard sign is still hanging above them, but the number has already started to move downward. Some customers now buy only what they need for the day. Others who had waited through the worst prices return when they see the change. Word spreads that another shop across town secured a cheaper shipment. Quietly, competition begins, pulling the number back down. The anger fades almost as quickly as it appeared. The headlines move on to something else. Electricity returns to more neighborhoods. Tap water slowly becomes safe again. The city steadies itself. And through all of it, that one number rising and then falling quietly influenced the behaviour of hundreds of people who never met and never spoke to one another. It changed how much they bought, when they bought, whether transport companies rerouted deliveries, whether suppliers decided the journey was worth the cost and risk. No public meeting organised the adjustment. No central authority issued instructions. The coordination happened through a signal moving through the system. And that is the deeper point. The price was never a moral sentence pronounced on anyone's character. It was information in motion. The people in Houston argued about the price, because prices never feel abstract when they touch survival. A number on a shelf can look cold, unfair, even cruel, and sometimes the outcomes attached to prices genuinely are painful. But the deeper lesson is this. A price is not simply a reward or punishment. It is a signal carrying information through the system. It tells buyers how scarce something has become. It tells suppliers where resources are urgently needed. It coordinates behaviour between strangers without requiring anyone to understand the whole picture. Here is the thought to carry forward. Prices do not possess morality, but the world shaped around them always affects human lives morally. And once you understand prices as signals rather than verdicts, another question naturally appears. What stops producers from charging endlessly higher prices whenever they can? What prevents one company from controlling the system entirely? Because markets do not regulate themselves through kindness. They rely on pressure. In the next episode, we move to the force that disciplines producers, limits power, and constantly threatens those who fail to adapt. Competition. The discipline behind the market.
If what you have just watched made you pause and think, that was the intention. This film is only one chapter from a much larger story. The book it comes from explores 34 of the most misunderstood ideas in economics. It began as something personal. A father trying to explain the world to his teenage daughter. Why prices rise. Why some societies prosper while others struggle. Why good intentions often produce unexpected consequences. The film shows only part of the picture. The book goes further, with additional chapters and ideas that never appeared in the series. If you would like to explore the full journey, What People Get Wrong About Economics is available now on Amazon. The link is in the description below.